Imagine standing beneath a night sky so clear that the stars don't just shine. They feel alive, whispering across the black canvas above you. For thousands of years, humans have tilted their heads back and gazed at one celestial companion that never leaves our side: the moon. For most of history, the moon was thought to be nothing but a cold, barren rock. When the Apollo astronauts landed there in the 1960s and 70s, they confirmed that picture, or so we thought. Dust, craters, endless silence. It was beautiful, yes, but lifeless. A museum piece in the sky. That was the story we were told. But here's the truth. The story has changed. And China's latest missions to the moon may have uncovered evidence that rewrites everything we thought we knew. Not just about the moon, but about ourselves, our future, and maybe even our past. This isn't just about exploration. It's about survival. Whoever controls the moon in the coming decades may control the destiny of humanity. Because the moon isn't empty, it's full. Full of resources, full of secrets, and possibly even full of a history that predates human civilization. Let's start with the mystery that has haunted astronomers for centuries. The hidden side of the moon. The side we never see from Earth. The moon is tidally locked, meaning the same face is always turned toward us, its dark far side forever concealed. For millennia, people wondered, what's back there? When the first spacecraft finally swung around in 1959, sending back grainy black and white images, the world was stunned. The far side looked nothing like the familiar face. It was rougher, more cratered, less touched by seas of lava. And for decades, that was all we knew. But then came a mission most people never heard of. In 1994, the U.S. military launched the Clementine mission, publicly described as a scientific mapping project. In reality, it was a joint NASA and Department of Defense operation, testing sensors for missile defense. Clementine orbited the moon for 2 months, taking over 1.8 million images. Some were released to the public, others were locked away. Why? Because buried in those frames were things that didn't belong: structures, geometric patterns, domes that looked anything but natural. Years later, declassified reports hinted at anomalies that could not be explained by geology alone. Even Neil Armstrong himself is rumored to have spoken, off the record, about strange, convex structures and domes he saw during Apollo 11. Officially, nothing more was said. But quietly, behind the scenes, the far side of the moon became the most interesting real estate in the solar system. And that's why, in 2019, China landed the Chang'e 4 mission there, making history as the first nation to touch down on the far side. This was no random choice. China knew the far side was where the mysteries were. And what they found set the stage for something even bigger. Fast forward to December 2020. China launched the Chang'e 5 mission with one bold goal: to bring lunar samples back to Earth for the first time in over 40 years. The spacecraft touched down in a region never visited before, drilled into the lunar soil, and scooped up precious samples of moon rock. A few weeks later, a capsule streaked through Earth's atmosphere and landed safely in Inner Mongolia. Inside were fragments of the moon, unlike any we'd ever studied before. At first, scientists expected the usual: dust, minerals, nothing more. But when the samples were analyzed, the results were shocking. Buried in that gray soil were traces of something no one had predicted: unique water molecules, locked inside tiny mineral crystals. Not surface ice, which we already suspected might exist at the poles, but water chemically bonded into the rocks themselves. That means water is spread across the moon, accessible, usable, waiting. But that wasn't all. Alongside the water molecules were strange organic compounds. Complex chemistry, more advanced than the simple organics carried by meteorites. Some scientists suggested these compounds could have formed through interactions with the solar wind, or with ancient comet impacts. But others asked a more unsettling question. What if they're evidence of something more? Something alive, or something once alive? Suddenly, the moon wasn't just a dead rock anymore. It was a resource, it was a question mark, and it was a promise. Think about what this means. Water is life. It's air to breathe, crops to grow, and fuel to burn. If you split water into hydrogen and oxygen, you have rocket fuel, the kind that can lift spacecraft to Mars and beyond. The moon could become a fueling station for the entire solar system, a stepping stone to the stars. Whoever masters lunar water won't just explore space, they'll control it. And that raises another question. If water and organics exist there now, what about long ago? Could the moon, at some point in its past, have supported life? Or was it seeded perhaps by visitors from elsewhere? Ancient myths tell strange stories. Sumerian tablets describing gods who traveled to the moon wearing helmets, cave paintings of beings with oversized, bubble-shaped heads. For centuries, these were dismissed as imagination, superstition. But what if the ancients weren't just imagining? What if they were remembering? The discoveries of Chang'e 5 cracked open a door. But behind that door lies something far larger. Resources that could change the balance of power on Earth itself. Because water isn't the only prize the moon hides. The moon, it turns out, isn't just a lifeless desert, it's a vault. And what's inside could reshape the destiny of our civilization. If water was the first shock from China's lunar samples, the second revelation was even more staggering. The moon is rich, unimaginably rich, in resources we can't easily get here on Earth. Chief among them is something that sounds almost like science fiction: helium-3. On Earth, helium-3 is vanishingly rare. It's a light isotope of helium, produced in trace amounts by nuclear reactors, but you could fit the entire planet's supply into a small warehouse. And yet, it holds the key to a future of clean, virtually limitless energy. Unlike the uranium and plutonium we use in today's nuclear plants, helium-3 doesn't produce deadly radioactive waste when used in fusion reactions. Imagine nuclear power without meltdowns, without toxic byproducts, without the nightmare of storing radioactive material for thousands of years. Just pure, safe energy. The problem? We don't have enough of it. But the moon does. For billions of years, the solar wind has been bombarding the lunar surface, planting helium-3 in its dusty soil. Estimates suggest there could be over 1 million tons of it locked within the regolith. Just 25 tons, enough to fit on a single rocket, could power the United States for a year. Whoever mines helium-3 on the moon could dominate the global energy market for centuries. It's no wonder, then, that scientists have begun calling the moon the Persian Gulf of the 21st century. But instead of oil, it's helium-3. Instead of pipelines, it's rockets and landers. And instead of global powers fighting wars over deserts on Earth, they may soon be competing for craters on the lunar surface. And helium-3 is only the beginning. The moon's soil is laced with rare Earth elements: neodymium, yttrium, lanthanum, the critical metals that power our smartphones, wind turbines, and satellites. On Earth, China already controls more than 70% of rare earth production, a grip that gives it enormous leverage in global technology. If China extends that dominance to the moon's reserves, the balance of technological power could tilt permanently in its favor. There's also gold, platinum, titanium, and other precious metals scattered across the lunar highlands. Even the oxygen bound within the regolith can be extracted and used for breathing or rocket propellant. To most of us, the moon looks like a barren wasteland. To engineers, it's a treasure chest. To governments, it's a battlefield waiting to happen. And make no mistake, the race has already begun. The United States has committed billions to the Artemis program, which aims to return astronauts to the lunar surface by the late 2020s. NASA's vision is clear. Not just visits, but permanent bases. A lunar economy. A stepping stone to Mars. Meanwhile, China has laid out its own timeline. An international lunar research station by 2030, developed alongside Russia and open to allies across the global south. On paper, it's about science. In reality, it's about power, prestige, and survival. The echoes of history are hard to ignore. In the 15th century, European nations raced across the oceans, planting flags on islands and continents, dividing up resources and territories in a scramble that would shape the next 500 years. Now, in the 21st century, the race has moved upward, to the oceans of space, the continents of the moon, and the resources buried beneath alien soil. But here's the uncomfortable truth. International law isn't ready for this. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 states that no nation can claim sovereignty over the moon. But what does that really mean? If an American company sets up a mining operation on a crater, do they own what they extract? If China builds a base near the lunar South Pole, rich in ice deposits, does anyone else get access? The treaty never imagined such questions. It was written when the moon was just a dream, not a prize. Already, we're seeing the cracks. The United States has drafted the Artemis Accords, agreements with allied nations that lay out rules for lunar activity. China, meanwhile, has rejected them outright, calling them an attempt at space colonialism. Instead, Beijing is drawing up its own set of rules, its own alliances. The stage is being set for two competing visions of the future: a lunar Cold War, with craters instead of countries, and resource claims instead of borders. But while governments posture, the implications go deeper. Think about it. If water, oxygen, fuel, and metals can all be harvested from the moon, it means humans can live there, indefinitely. No more hauling every supply from Earth at enormous cost. Instead, lunar colonies could sustain themselves, growing crops in domes, mining their own oxygen, building structures out of 3D-printed regolith bricks. The moon would no longer just be a destination. It would be a home, and from that home we could go anywhere. Mars, the asteroid belt, beyond. The moon could become humanity's first true springboard into the cosmos. A century from now, when our descendants are scattered across the solar system, they may look back at this decade as the moment it all began. Not with the Apollo flag planting of the 1960s, but with the quiet, relentless missions of China's Chang'e program and America's Artemis rockets. Yet, in the shadows of this new frontier lies a darker possibility. Because history also tells us that when humans fight over resources, conflict follows. If one nation controls the helium-3 mines, another may seek to sabotage them. If one side builds military outposts disguised as research stations, the other may respond in kind. The moon could become not just the gateway to the stars, but the stage for the first war beyond Earth. And there's another question, one few dare to ask. If the moon already holds mysteries we're only beginning to understand, water where there should be none, organics in lifeless soil, structures hinted at in forgotten images, what happens when human hands dig deeper? Are we about to unlock energy and wealth? Or are we about to unearth something far older, something waiting beneath the dust, something we were never meant to find? Because the moon is a vault, yes, but not all vaults should be opened. The moon has always been a mirror for humanity's dreams. When we looked at it in wonder, we saw gods. When we looked at it with ambition, we saw a destination. And now, when we look at it with need, we see a lifeline. The discoveries made by China's Chang'e program, water molecules hidden in minerals, complex organic compounds in the soil, have transformed the moon from a barren rock into something else entirely. A resource hub, a potential home, a place where the story of humanity's next chapter might be written. But every discovery brings new questions, and some of those questions stretch beyond science, into the realms of myth, mystery, and even fear. Because if the moon is not lifeless, what does that mean about its past? And more importantly, what does it mean for our future? Picture the year 2035. A dome glitters in the lunar dawn, its curved surface shimmering under the unfiltered sun. Inside, astronauts breathe air not shipped from Earth but extracted from the regolith beneath their boots. Crops grow in hydroponic trays, watered by ice mined from nearby craters. Solar panels glint on the horizon, feeding power into batteries, while 3D printers hum, turning lunar dust into bricks for new structures. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's the vision being drafted in blueprints today. NASA's Artemis program has already begun laying the foundation for permanent habitats near the lunar South Pole, where ice deposits lie hidden in eternal shadow. China, meanwhile, has announced plans for its International Lunar Research Station, a base that would not just house scientists, but serve as a launchpad for deeper missions to Mars and beyond. For the first time in history, the human species could live somewhere other than Earth. Children could one day be born on the moon, their first steps taken under 1/6 gravity, their first view of the world a blue marble rising over a silver horizon. But as inspiring as this vision is, it comes with shadows. The same resources that make the moon habitable also make it a prize. Water for life support, helium-3 for energy, rare earth elements for technology. If history is any guide, competition for those resources will not remain peaceful. Already, both the US and China are racing to stake their claims. One speaks of safety zones around mining sites. The other dismisses this as colonialism. Neither side seems willing to compromise. Military strategists whisper about the moon as the ultimate high ground, a platform for satellites, missile systems, or even space-based weapons. Officially, space is meant to be peaceful, governed by treaties signed half a century ago. But unofficially, the race to weaponize space has never stopped, and the moon could be the next battlefield. If that sounds far-fetched, consider this. In 1959, the United States drafted a plan called Project A-119, a proposal to detonate a nuclear weapon on the moon, just to demonstrate power during the Cold War. It was never carried out, but the intent was clear. To governments, the moon has always been more than a rock. It has always been a stage. And now, with new evidence of resources and strange anomalies, that stage feels more crowded than ever. Because what if the moon holds more than minerals and ice? Throughout history, ancient cultures have told strange stories of the moon. The Sumerians spoke of gods descending from it, clad in helmets that let them breathe. Early cave art shows figures with oversized, bubble-like heads, shapes eerily similar to modern space helmets. And scattered across declassified Apollo-era whispers are tales of structures on the far side, convex domes, geometric shapes, anomalies dismissed publicly but discussed privately. Were these just myths, imagination, or fragments of something real, memories of encounters, stories passed down across generations until their origin was forgotten? When China's Chang'e 4 touched down on the far side in 2019, it landed in a region long rumored to be different. Some researchers pointed to unusual mineral formations. Others suggested that the far side, shielded from Earth's radio noise, was the perfect place to detect faint signals from the universe, or perhaps from something else. What exactly was found there remains tightly controlled. Officially, only geological data was collected. Unofficially, speculation swirls. And here is the haunting thought. If the moon has been a silent companion for billions of years, could it also have been a witness? Or even a participant? Could its surface hide not just the record of our solar system's history, but evidence of visitors long before us? Whether ancient or modern, natural or constructed, the truth about the moon is this. It is no longer a passive background to human life. It is becoming the center of it. The discoveries made by China, the ambitions of the United States, the growing involvement of private companies, all of it points to the same conclusion. We are going back. We are staying. And what happens there will decide what happens here. Will the moon become a shared outpost for all humanity, a place where nations set aside rivalries and build a future together? Or will it become another battlefield, where the same old struggles of power and control play out under alien skies? Will we find resources that propel us to the stars, or secrets that we are not ready to confront? The moon waits, silent, patient, watching as it always has, but no longer empty, no longer irrelevant. Now it is a doorway, and the handle has just been turned. So the question isn't what China found on the moon, it's what we'll do with it. Water, organics, helium-3, strange structures, they're all pieces of a puzzle bigger than any single mission, bigger than any single nation. The moon could be the key to our survival, the gateway to a new golden age of exploration, or the spark that ignites a conflict unlike any humanity has ever faced. Once we looked to the moon as a light in the night sky. Now it may light the path to the stars, or reveal truths we are not prepared to face. Because the real discovery isn't just on the moon, It's in what the moon forces us to become.